what's happening in California. They're rigging the election. Those numbers are coming down rapidly. They found a lot of mail-in ballots last night, shockingly.
LA's mayor responded to his false claims about, quote, big cheating, writing, quote, Trump only says this when MAGA candidates like Spencer Pratt start losing. LA will count every vote.
I can't prove it, but everybody watching thinks there's shenanigans when it takes this long and Pratt and Hilton keep losing.
They said it's going to take weeks to count. You know what that means.
Yeah, shenanigans.
Shenanigans.
When you look at what's happening in California, their election regime now is destroying trust in our election system.
They absolutely have the capability to cheat. They have designed a system that is designed to cheat.
I just want to underscore for the people maybe listening and not watching what it says on our screen that these are baseless fraud claims. And the question is, how are California officials dealing with that? Well, the current governor, Gavin Newsom, just let CNN's own Alex Michelson explain.
Right now, about 80% of voters return their ballots by mail. Each one of them has to go through a signature verification process. LA County alone has 5.9 million registered voters, which is more voters than 41 other states. So there's a lot of vote by mail. There's a lot of steps to prevent fraud, and all that takes a lot of time.
I mean, it's expected. We knew that those baseless claims, let's just keep calling it that, would come. The question is, what is going to happen ultimately when we get the results? When will we get the results? And I mean, we don't know if it could be ultimately in either or both of these races, a Democrat and a Republican or two Democrats.
I was really struck by a social media post from Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, who was not a big election denier after the 2020 election.
We can put it up and you can read it.
Yeah, and so this was a guy who kind of kept that at arm's length, and he had a post where he said basically like, oh, does California just count until they get the result that they want?
He said California keeps dumping votes. Odds are shifting because the vote dump always seem to go one way. Count until you get the result you want. Again, that is not based on anything that's actually happening. It is the way that they are counting tends to work out this way for whatever reason. The Republican votes tend to be counted earlier. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe we have more of a reason than I'm explaining now, but that is what happens in California time and time again in election after election, and it changes as they get more of the ballots in and counted.
And part of the reason is that Donald Trump has spent years discouraging Republicans from returning mail ballots. And so when you're counting these mail ballots late, they tend to be more Democratic leaning. I just think it's worth underscoring how much they're seeding suspicion that these conservative media personalities, Republican politicians, it's become very commonplace for them to at least play footsie with the idea that there's something untoward that's happening here, regardless of how much evidence there is. And there is a real cost for that. You know, we saw on January 6, 2021, what can happen when a large number of people come to believe that the elections cannot be trusted. And so I think we're just kind of in a situation where this is the new normal, but it is a very dangerous new normal.
Which is why we are doing this right now and calling it out, not just because of what it means for this race, but as you kind of suggested there, what it means for what we're going to potentially see this November.
Yeah, and obviously you heard the president yesterday in the Oval Office again repeating this idea that California is rife with fraud, and that's why you're seeing all these vote totals again not backed by reality. I did think it was interesting that we saw the Save America Act vote come up for a vote this week as this is all going on, and you saw multiple Republican senators not vote for it. Again, looking at this whole apparatus of the president trying to stop Americans from voting by mail, trying to put it in legislation. Obviously, it doesn't have real legs on Capitol Hill. Looking at the extension of his power in that way and how, people, influencers may play footsie with it, but when it comes to real legislation, that's not moving.
It could still be days before the race is resolved. Republican Steve Hilton currently leading by a narrow margin, but he's criticizing the pace of the vote counting.
This election is turning into yet another Democrat fiasco. It is a complete disgrace that now, nearly 2 days after the election, barely half the votes, just over half the votes, have been counted.
Do you believe anything nefarious is going on?
We're watching everything very closely. Our team is on top of everything. We've got lawyers standing by if needed. At this point, we haven't seen any need to intervene in that way, but we are very frustrated.
Meanwhile, President Trump is alleging, without providing any evidence, that there is, quote, big cheating in California. He says that is under investigation by the U.S. Attorney's Office. So let's talk to the guy who runs that office. Joining us now is First Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Central District of California, Bill Essayli. Bill, welcome back to The Story Is.
Hey Alex, how are you?
Good. So are you investigating voter fraud?
Well, I'm not going to comment on any specific investigation. What I will tell you is that we do monitor and we do look for fraud in every election. This is no exception. Any election that has a federal candidate on it, we do monitor and we look for fraud. And there's no question there is fraud in every election. The question is how much fraud. We know that California, there's been many people prosecuted for illegally registering to vote or not being qualified to vote. And the response is always, it's not widespread. And the problem with California, to be frank, our system sucks. It really does. We have universal vote by mail. We have no voter ID. And that is a recipe for fraud. And it makes it almost impossible to know how many people are eligible to vote in California. We've tried hard to audit the voter rolls. We have sued the state of California. The federal government's entitled to review those voter rolls, and they have stonewalled us. That case is before the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals as we speak. And so we'd like to audit it. We want people to have confidence in these elections.
But let's be clear. The President of the United States said that there's cheating going on in California. Do you have any evidence that there is cheating going on in California? Certainly cheating big enough to turn the outcome of one of these elections.
Well, those are two very different questions. Absolutely, there is evidence that people are cheating, 100%. We have multiple investigations into people who are voted who should not have voted.
Are there any people in particular? Are you bringing any?
There will be charges. I'm not prepared to announce them yet, but we do have open investigations into voter fraud. There's no question that there's voter fraud in California. We just prosecuted and announced charges against one individual about a month ago who was registering homeless people to vote in downtown LA. She was paying them to register at false addresses to vote. So there's no question there's voter fraud. The question that you said is very important. Is it widespread? Will it affect an outcome of election? We don't know. The system is not designed to detect or prevent fraud. The system sucks. And the president is frustrated, as are we. I was very outspoken about this in the legislature. Yeah. And the legislature doesn't seem to care. But I think voters will have a chance to potentially change this system in November. But that's up to them.
Okay, and just one more time. When he says that there is cheating and that there's an active investigation into that cheating by your office, can you confirm that?
I'm not going to discuss any specific investigation. I will tell you that we do have, in general, we do have investigations, and we are looking to charge people relatively soon for election fraud.